your favourite rapper's favourite rapper, the founder of mafioso storytelling, or even the Kaiser Sose of hip-hop in terms of keeping a low profile. Either way, the G in G Rap stands for the genius, probably more fitting for the 80s, or Sam Giancana, the mobster boss, which is probably more fitting for the 90s. But it would be Kool G Rap and DJ Polo's track, The Road to the Riches, that would set the trend for gangster rap on the East Coast come the 90s. So the album Road to the Riches was recorded between 86 and 88, and it was released on Cold Chillin' Records and produced by Marley Marl. And apart from the title track and the first three or four tracks, it's a very 80s album. Nothing like the second album they released in 1990, and nothing like the 92 album, which came out much harder. So 1990, Wanted Dead or Alive was released, and this is as good as any album you're going to hear from 1990 in my view. And after Marley Marl's success with Cold Chillin' and the popular track The Symphony, Kool G Rap and DJ Polo stayed with Cold Chillin', but went their own way with production, where they would use the large Professor, believe it or not, that produced most of this album, having been drafted in to ghost produced by Eric B, of all people. So on this topic, let's talk a little bit about Eric B, who gets a lot of flack for not participating much to the music itself. Although I did hear he was the instigator in the Paid in Full album with Eric B and Rakim in terms of the production, where Rakim would laugh at first, and Eric B was the one who drove it forward, so fair play. But he was more like a business networker than a producer, and Eric B apparently introduced Kool G Rap to DJ Polo, where he also enabled Large Professor to ghost produce much of Kool G Rap and DJ Polo's Wanted Dead or Alive album, as much as his own project alongside Rakim on Let the Rhythm In. So anyway, talking of ghost producers, what exactly did DJ Polo do? I mean, no offence to DJ Polo if I'm wrong, but he doesn't get very good media coverage if he did indeed do the lion's share of production, but he didn't even do the scratching apparently. This was either Marley Marl or Dr. Butcher. So the track Play It Again Polo refers to play what again? Anyway, I'm not going to get into who did what and all that, because I believe everyone has a part to play, and it's usually money that just screws everything up. But anyway, Wanted Dead or Alive is like the coming of age album for Kool G Rap, and his lyrics matured and coming from a wider perspective whilst being even more fully engaged with everyday life issues. And when you consider NWA were paving the way for gangster rap on the West Coast around this time, and Ghetto Boys down south, this album was really representing the same issues on the East. Bad to the Bone is my favourite track from this album. It's got that 80s feel, one of the funkiest bass lines you're going to hear around this time. So anyway, everything changed in the 90s, and it was all going much harder, and it was either go harder or get left behind. And Kool G Rap and DJ Polo certainly went in. And brand new Heavies, Heavy Rhyme Experience album, shows the first signs of this harder change on Death Threat, which is just Kool G Rap. So I remember seeing the advert for this album, you know, in the Source, Rap Sheet, HHC, and I remember this being one of many controversial album covers at the time, such as Ice-T's Cop Killer and Paris's Sleeping with the Enemy, and Warner Brothers refused to release it, which ironically made it more popular amongst fans. I must admit, being only 14 or 15 at the time, I couldn't play it loudly at home. And you know, this album should not be played if you are easily offended. I can't stress that enough. But Sir Jinx on the production, Sir Jinx from the Ice Cube crew, and Kool G Rap was a beautiful combination. No more Eric B. But interestingly, this album is considered the East Coast equivalent of Ice Cube's America's Most Wanted, as it was recorded in LA with a West Coast production, just like Ice Cube's America's Most Wanted was produced and recorded in New York, mostly by Public Enemy's Bomb Squad. A great example of East meets West working together. So his voice got deeper, a lot deeper on this album, and his lyrics got deeper with it. On tracks like Edge of Sanity and Hill Street Blues, DJ Polo seemed AWOL on this project, and it'll be their last project together. Other legends such as Cold Chillin' label mate Big Daddy Kane was on it and joined him on the track Number One with a Bullet, and Ice Cube, Scarface and Bushwick Bill joined him on Two to the Head, pure gangster track with the best from the West, South and East. You know, some would say that this album just talks guns, sex and violence, which is true, you know, but many of us love gangster and horror movies, right? And even John Wayne movies, you know, depicts guns and violence in a glorified manner. And some could argue if they don't talk about life in the ghettos, then who will? I mean, even though some of this gangster stories were clearly for entertainment value at a time when this kind of creativity was very accepted in hip-hop, just before hip-hop blew up and the keeping it real became the demand. Often these stories did touch real inner city life of those in ghettos, which is often the only way to get these issues into the public realm. And rappers' popularity amongst fans is for this very reason. You know, modern day poets reflecting real life problems such as guns, sex and violence, reaching media outlets that are otherwise unaffordable. You know, but there's always one that ruins it for everyone else, right? And commits a real life act following these stories. But you know, why is it hip-hop always gets the blame and not the movies? And let's be honest, this album would have been a lot more successful if Warner weren't going through their Ice-T cop killer anxieties and Cold Chillin' weren't going through their Bismarckese all samples cleared anxieties. A risky album cover and lyrics so controversial it sold out and never got re-released until 2008. Even Neighborhood F You Man has been removed from some platforms as it's so explicit. But if you can find it, please don't be offended. It's humorous, but there's always one that ruins it for everyone that takes it too damn seriously. So without any further delay, enter 1995 456 album by Kool G Rap. This is like the icing on the cake. Hip-hop was blowing up internationally. Kool G Rap had earned his stripes, and now it's time to pull out his heavyweight championship belt, hold it high, walk around the ring, asking the audience, where's the challenger? And his lyrics have stepped up again. Whilst not compromising his raw style, there's no doubt it's a more polished album. Nas features on the classic Fast Life, produced by Buck Wild, and taken to war as a lesson in rhyme delivery. And Ghetto Knows, hearing that on Westwood, I remember it giving me goosebumps. You know, that poetic rhyme flow of, you know, G Rap's back. So that's where I'm going to leave my G Rap intro, because as far as I'm concerned, these were his legendary years from like 89 to 95. In chronological order is my top 10 because it shows his progression as a rapper. And it includes 3 tracks that he guests on because he did collaborate on some bangers from the 90s. And I must make a mention of the track Nuff Said that would probably come in at a number 11 here, because it just sums up G Rap for me. As Jay-Z said, G Rap in his prime.